Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, and today we're dealing with somebody else's problem. I got a bail in a box. Somebody brought along a reel that they had taken apart, started to service. For whatever reason, something was either malfunctioning with the bail or they took the bail off to inspect it. All the parts kind of went each other's way, and as a result of that, they got lost and panicked and they asked if I could help. So I just want to show everybody how these things come together. This one happens to be for a Shimano Sahara, and I think the first thing, if you ever presented with this situation, is to go back to the schematic on this and check for parts. And that's exactly what I did when I received this. I found out that we were short, first we were short the arm and the screw. They found that on their workbench, but then we were short the two side screws and they couldn't find those. So in a moment of panic, I guess everything kind of came apart on them, literally and figuratively. The other side of it was they were a little bit confused about this piece. Most of the time you'll see a bail assembly and it'll have a wire that hooks in, but it won't have a little fork like that. And I'm thinking that they may have stumbled even on that in terms of how this thing came together. So I'll show you. It's not that difficult. It's something that we should all kind of be aware of in terms of how it works, and then maybe it'll help you put it together on another day. So this is a Shimano Sahara. It's the 3000 size, but the technology in here for the bail release is fairly similar right across the board. So this has a what I'll call a Z lever, one side longer than the other. The longer side sits down into the recess for the spool, inside the rotor, I'm sorry. And when it's engaged, this will pick up, it'll ride on a ramp and it will trip this. And you'll see that in just a moment. And then the springy side of this thing is a fork. Kind of looks like the number 7, and the spring rides on that post and it rides inside the assembly like this. So that spring has to be compressed, and the little number, the little letter Z here has to be engaged with the back of this arm. So on the back of the arm, you're going to notice that there's a hole here. This is pretty common across many manufacturers. That letter 7 is going to sit in that hole, just like that. And then that Z piece is going to connect in here. So what we want to do right now is just work on setting this up so that they do connect. We'll take the Z, for lack of a better term. Somebody will come in and I'm sure write a comment that said it's not a Z, it's a trip lever or something. Well, I'm just going to make this simple. Now we're going to grab the arm and the spring. We're going to attach the arm into the bail arm. Then we're going to position that so that it sits over the top. Up. And this is where balance is always an issue. We have the one in. Oops, we don't even have the one in right now. So I'm going to sit that down into the chamber. That's where the bottom of the spring is going to run. And then I'm going to get this oriented. I'm going to put pressure on it that way. I'm going to find that hole again. Now that I have the hole, oops, I didn't have the hole. And these are the things that try everybody's patience. That's why nobody likes working on bails. That's why when they blow up, people will get frustrated by them. But we'll get it. We always do. Just takes a couple of tries. And one of the problems here actually is that I'm trying to work this on camera, and I don't This isn't the way I would naturally do it. Obviously, you can see my wrist is turning backwards here. Okay, so now I'm going to press down, and then I'm going to center over it. So this is properly loaded now. We have the arm is in here, the spring is compressed, and all I need is one of those screws that didn't show up in the package that I had to go order. And we can go put that in. And that is the fun part of the program. So what's going to happen now, we'll just show you, but this is going to hold that spring in, but right now I'm just going to hold it with my hand. It's going to come out this way. You can see it releases, and then it pushes down this arm. So when this arm hits that slide ramp, it's going to trip it up. I hope that was clear. We'll show it again. It's going to pull down. It's going to push this arm down. When the arm is riding, you'll see the ramp on the reel here. When the arm is riding, it rides up the ramp, pushing this up, releasing the bail. Okay, so here we go. That goes back on now. And again, I've seen this on just about every manufacturer's reel in one capacity or another. That's kind of the way that this is made. Okay, we've got another one of these little screws that goes in here. Once you put this screw on, you don't have to be quite as sitting on eggshells or whatever, because that's holding it now. And you can see, you can just manually play with that, trip that all day, and you've got the right functioning bail. All right, over to this beastie then. So this, I guess, was the second moment of hesitation. And a bunch of parts, and oh my gosh, how do they come together, right? Especially this thing, because that's a little intimidating with that fork and grommet. So it all wound up in a bag. I went to the schematics, and here's your burst on that, kind of working backwards. So we have the angle. We have a little kind of a pointy little thingy. How's that for a technical term? The plastic one, ring, another spacer, bearing housing with the line roller in it, a washer, and then the screw. So there's a couple of pieces in here. I'm not taking them out, but I did verify that that's the way they go. And so it works like this. It's kind of interesting. This fork is point down. There's a little space in here. You might see it. There's a slot. And so the fork goes into the slot. I'm just going to start this sort of like that. Then the fork goes over it and into the slot. I almost got this. And when that fork is seated in the slot, almost, there we go. Then we have a little spacer. Then, as I mentioned, there's a plastic ferrule, there's a bearing, there's a couple of other pieces. They're all tangled up inside here. If you were to buy all the pieces separately, you would find how that works. And then there's one more shield here. And then all of that shield sits inside the assembly that we just did. I've got that line roller backwards. There we go. You can tell by the way if it's centered or not. Oh, now I just lost the groove. Okay, back on with this. That goes in here, and we have a threaded screw which goes in on the other side. Kind of clever design, but you saw the ball bearing in there on the line roller as well. Oops, I lost it. Didn't tighten it up enough yet. No problem, just reset. Just push that out a little bit. There we go. And once you tighten that down, that little point on the through screw is going to hold it in place and get it upside down. So some days you, no, I got it right. There you go. Okay, and then we just line it in here. Grab the other screw that was missing. Insert and tighten. And then we can just test. Again, we can just test it by flipping. Or better yet, you can finish the real form by putting the rotor back on, grabbing the nut, okay, so I went off camera and I just had to consult one more time with that schematic just to make sure that it was proper. It is, so we're set here now. Just wanted to set that back up. Now we can come back in, put the nut back on the bail, on the rotor. And then we'll just confirm that we got it. Correct. So problem resolved. Just put the handle back in here. Okay. So we are functional again. We're not handle's loose, but that's okay. Alrighty, so that's how you do it. It's not terribly difficult. It does require a little bit of patience, and it does require you to look before you leap here. And once you check it out with your schematics and get up the nerve to go tackle it, then you're doing fine. I'm just, yeah, we had a little bit of a mismatch on the handle there. Okay, alrighty. So I hope that that's helped those of you that have come up with a bail in a bag. And if you have that kind of trouble, you certainly know that you can work through it. Make sure you have all of the parts first. That's the most important. You're not going to be successful if you don't have the parts. And then once you have the parts, it's a simple spring and trip lever, or the letter 7. I'm sorry, the letter Z and a number 7. You can put those back together that way. Once you load that arm, then if there are pieces, sometimes it's just a solid piece of bail wire. In this case, a little bit more complicated with the fork, the bearing, some bushings and spacers. Just refer to your diagram, and once you've referred to your diagram, you're pretty much set in terms of having that reel ready to go again. So don't, just because you may have popped a bail spring, or maybe even just needed one replaced because your bail spring lost its tension or got bent or some other way misshapen to the point where it had to be replaced. Do what I suggest doing most of the time. Take pictures, go to the schematics. As you go to take the pieces off, make sure that you note the orientation of them and the how they all sit. And then once you do that, you can have the success that I just did there. So I hope that helps. If you like the video, please indicate that. If you want to see more, please subscribe and stay tuned as we'll continue to show you the repairs on the reels that come into my shop. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, working on a Shimano Sahara with a bail that was a bail in a bag that's now a functional reel. So thank you for watching.